Everyone, so today I wanted to bring you a video on my top 5 retail pet peeves. So I've worked a decent amount of jobs since I was 16 and I am currently 20 years old, so about 4 years total of retail experience. I've worked 2+ jobs within that time as well, so I have a good amount of retail experience. So let's get into the video. My number 1 retail pet peeve is when people come up to you or walk into your store on the phone. So I'm not saying like if you're walking into Target or Walmart or a grocery store where there's not really that customer interaction unless you go up to, say, the bakery or you go up to the cashier or like you ask an associate. Really, if you're on the phone in those big types of corporation stores, usually nobody cares. But for me, working in smaller stores, working at GNC, I worked at Francesca's Collections, Piercing Pagoda. When people come up or they walk into your store and they're on your phone, to me that is one of the most disrespectful things a person can do. I mean, you don't even have the decency to put down your phone and talk to me. I understand it's one thing if, say, the person, especially in GNC, if somebody's trying to help you find a specific product or they're recommending it to you and you call them and you're like, hey, what does it look like? What brand is it? And like I can ask questions so they can help the person looking for it and I can help them find it. But when they're just on the phone having a conversation that is usually completely irrelevant, that makes me so mad. Just because I'm like, okay, so I'm not worth the decency or your time so you can hang up your damn phone. My second pet peeve, which I think this one might just be me from what I've heard from my coworkers, which I've noticed a lot from working at the movie theater, which I know isn't 100% retail, but I mean box office is kind of like a retail environment. But when somebody calls and they're like, hi, I have a question, and pause, and I'm like, are you gonna say your question? Because to me, I was like, hey, I have a question, I was just wondering, yada yada yada. That's fine. But when they're like, hey, I have a question, and then pause, I'm like, do you need me to say yes? Are you gonna compliment me? No, I figured you were calling just to compliment me. Didn't think you would question at all because you're calling. Because I don't know why else you would call. Number 3 would be when customers blame you for their expired coupons. So far, I've only had this one happen to me at GNC from at least what I can remember, and probably when I worked at Subway. But when they blame you, they're like, oh, this just expired a day ago. And I'm like, it expired a day ago. I'm not just going to give you the discount because you couldn't follow the rules of the coupon and come in when it was actually supposed to be used. I know at GNC, when they did the whole conversion over into the loyalty program, and they were selling the gold card up until the 18th of December, and they started the program the 29th of December, so I can understand why some people were aggravated of they just spent $15 on this card, on the gold card, and now it's free. They did send out $5 cash cards, or not $5, but they sent out $15, $10, and $5 cash cards depending on when you had actually purchased your gold card in relation to when they switched over. So say you bought it in December, they likely sent you a $10 cash card through the mail. They all expired February 10th. I've had people try to bring them to me up until, I want to say last month, about June. And I saw them pull it out of their bag, and those look completely different than all of the other GNC coupons. It's white, where all the other ones are like a gold or red. And they pull it out, and I was just like, nope, that's expired. And then they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, look at the back. They expired on February 10th. I was like, I'm sorry. That has been sitting in your purse for, what, 4 to 5 months? That's not my fault. My 4th pet peeve would be having customers yell at you for you following company policy. So this occasionally happens to me, especially when I work at the movie theater. So I don't know if you guys have seen my other video, but I do work at a Cinemark movie theater, and I'm frequently at box office. And one, people will come up to you and say, I'm buying 2 tickets to Get Out, which was rated R a couple months ago. And their parent thinks that it's okay for them to buy the tickets and just give them to their child. Give it to their children and their friend. I'm sorry, the policy for me working there for 2.5 years has been the exact same. You have to have a parent or guardian that is over 21 years old with you to bring somebody that is under 17 to an R-rated movie. That is the policy. If other people break that policy, then cool, good for you for that one time, but that's always been the policy, at least from my knowledge, at least when we were Cinemark and Rave. I have not seen a policy that has been like, oh yeah, you can totally just buy your kids them. That's not been a thing, at least in the past 2.5 years. But I will get yelled at by parents and their children. They're like 13-year-olds that are trying to go sneak into this R-rated movie. And they're sitting here yelling at me. They're like, well, I went to this other theater and they let me do it, no problem. And I'm like, cool, go to that theater. Like, I try to say it as nice as I can, but realistically, our policy is our policy. They broke it. I'm not going to do that. Another example at the movie theater is so our policy for student and military ID is, especially between child and student. So child at Cinemark is anybody 1 to 11. Anybody over 11 is considered an adult unless they have a valid student ID. Or military, because some people have those too. And so I am that person that I believe if you are old enough to be given a student ID, which is usually anybody in middle school, which usually is about 12. Most schools give out student IDs. If you have a student ID, you should be responsible enough to know that you are going to the movies, because clearly somebody else is dropping you off, and you should carry it on you. I don't think it's the responsibility of the person that works at box office to know how old you are. If you don't say for a child's ticket, they're going to charge you for an adult ticket. They shouldn't just give you the student because you may look like a student. People nowadays, they could be 14 and then look like they're 25. Like, I'm sorry, but you're old enough. You should carry your student ID. Or if there's a group of probably 16 to 18-year-olds going to see a movie, like an R-rated movie, and say 2 or 3 of them don't have their IDs. Our policy is you need a photo ID to go see an R-rated movie. And if you don't, you need somebody that is over 21 with a photo ID to go see an R-rated movie. So, also, if you are old enough to have an ID, you should carry that ID on you. I don't know why people leave them in their cars. That's always been weird to me. But if you're old enough to have one, you should be responsible enough to carry it on you. What if you end up in a ditch and the person didn't take your ID? How are they going to identify your body? That's just me. And my number 5 retail pet peeve would have to be when people are waiting outside for you to open. I understand if it's like Black Friday, because that's a little bit different, or if it's like certain situations, because you have to get in line first. But most places, see, I am never that person that I will go in the minute they open or the minute they unlock the door. I think that's rude. I've worked retail. I've never wanted to be that person. I know I went into a place, they didn't open until 11. I got there at like 10:48. I sat in my car till like 11:05 because I didn't want to be that person to walk in or wait by the door for them to open, because that just makes it uncomfortable for the employee opening. How do you know that they're not going to stab you? You don't know that. Also, kind of on that same note, is when people walk in the minute before you close, or the last, especially like a GNC, because selling here can take a little bit. People will come in last minute when you say you close at 9 and people come in at like 8:57, and you're like, no. Unless you can get in and out of here by 9, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to sit here and stay an extra half an hour. Like, I got places I gotta be. I am supposed to be clocked out of here by 9:30. I need to be closed by 9 to get all my paperwork done, to go to the bank, to do all this stuff. Like, to me, that's just, I mean, unless you're going into like a place, say Walmart, where they have so many customers that go in there all the time that they know that they're never really going to close. Say they close at 10. They're never really going to close at 10. There's going to be customers that are going to be in there for a while afterward. That's to be expected in Walmart. Any small store, say like GNC or Piercing Pagoda, other small kiosk or individual stores, that is not expected. You had the entire day. I guarantee you most stores are not that busy. You could have came in 10 minutes prior and we wouldn't have cared. It's just that last couple of minutes where you're like, okay, the day's done. I'm about to go home. And you kind of ruin it. So these were my top 5 retail pet peeves. I have way more than this. If you guys want to see a different video on this or some more pet peeves, please let me know in the comment section down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this kind of video. It's a little bit more personal than some of the other ones I've filmed because pet peeves get everybody going. Everybody has pet peeves. But thank you guys for watching and have a great rest of your day. Bye guys.